Hello viewers, welcome to another lesson for the senior secondary school category. I am Mr. Jame, and today's lesson is solving quadratic equations using the formula. In the previous lesson, we learned about solving quadratic equations using the completing square method. Now, in solving quadratic equations using the formula, we are going to make sure that today, in this lesson, we learn how to derive the formula using completing the square and also solve quadratic equations using the formula. So we are going to make sure that we see how related these two things are, that is completing the square method and the formula method. Can we take a quick recap of what we've done in the last lesson? Looking at the example, 2x squared plus, or let me use minus 5x minus 12 equals to 0. Looking at this example, I want us to solve this using the completed square method like we did in our previous lesson. In our previous lesson, we were told that always transpose the constant of the equation to the right-hand side of the equation. That will give 2x squared minus 5x equals to, if you transpose negative 12 to the right-hand side, that will give us 12. The next thing we are going to do is we are going to divide all the terms in the equation by 2. Why are we going to divide by 2? The reason is we want to make the coefficient of the quadratic expression, which is x squared, equals to 1. So we divide everything by 2. If you do that, you realize that 2 will cancel 2. And that will give x squared minus 5 over 2x equals to, if you divide 12 by 2, you will have 6. Now, the next thing we learned in the previous lesson was you take the value of b. Our value of b equals to negative 5 over 2. Now we are told that you multiply the b value by 2 or you divide by 2. Sorry, you multiply the b value by half or you divide by 2. So in this case, I will multiply this component by half. Now when you multiply, negative 5 times 1 will give us negative 5. All over 2 times 2 will give us 4. The next rule that you learned was you square the result. After squaring the results, what are you going to do with the result? The rules say we add it to both sides of the equation, that is to the left-hand side and to the right-hand side. So that will give x squared minus 5 over 2x. I'm now adding the result, which is going to be plus in bracket. That is a negative sign. Negative 5 all over 4 all squared equals to, on the right hand side, remember we have 6. So the result that we get after taking half of b and multiply by half was, we add plus in bracket negative 5 over 4 all squared. Now, all you need to do is we simplify, and then that can lead us to the answer right away. If you simplify what is on the left-hand side by factorization, which was our previous lesson, you will have x inside the bracket. Remember, what we added to both sides was -5/4 all squared. So looking at that component, the sign that dictates what is in the bracket is negative. So that's going to be x minus 5/4 in bracket all squared will be equals to 6. If you square a negative number in bracket, the result is always positive. So that will give us 6 plus 5. -5 squared is 25 all over 4 squared will give you 16. Again, if you point this from your calculator, you will have x minus 5/4 all squared equals to, let's find the LCM. If you divide 6 by 1, it's the same thing as 6. So the LCM of 1 and 16 is obviously 16. 1 goes into 16. The answer is 16. 16 times 6 will give us 96. Plus 16 into itself is 1s. 1 times 25 will give us 25. If you simplify the numerator, you will have x minus 5/4 in bracket all squared equals to 96 plus 25 will give us 121 all over 16. Now, the next thing we are going to do is you are asked to take the square root of both sides like we did in the previous lesson. So I'm going to take the square root of both sides. Remember to put the plus or minus because you are dealing with a quadratic expression, where the square cancel the root, and you'll be left with x minus 5/4 equals to, these are two numbers. If you press from your calculator the square root of 121, that's going to give us 11 over the square root of 16 is going to be 4. So meaning the square root of 121 divided by 16 all in a root will give us 11 all over 4. Now we have an equation with two signs. So we are going to work them one after the other. I start with the negative sign. X minus 5/4 equals to negative 11 all over 4. Now, what can you do to make sure that you get the answer here? We transpose what is on the left-hand side to the right-hand side by collecting the like terms. And the like terms here are negative 5/4 and negative 11/4. Now, let's transpose and see what we are going to have. X will be equals to negative 11 all over 4. If you move the negative 5/4, we'll change sign to what? Positive 5 all over 4. In grade 7, we learn about fractions. And then you are taught something about fractions with a common denominator. Now, since the denominator is common to both fractions, we are going to take one of them. So we can say x equals to, by simplifying the numerator, negative 11 plus 5 will give us negative 6 all over common denominators. When simplifying them in terms of fractions, we take 1. Now, we can further simplify this because there is a number that can reduce the fraction into its simplest form. And what number is that? 2 can do that. So to reduce this number, we can say x equals to 2 can go into 6 how many times? 3 times. Obviously, there is a negative sign that will give us negative 3. over. 2 can go into 4 how many times? 2 times, and the answer for the first x value will be negative 3 over 2. But that's not the end. Remember, we have 2 signs here, a positive and a negative. We have to do the same thing for the positive sign. So I'll write or x minus 5 over 4 equals to 11 over 4. The same thing we did in the first one is the same process that we are going to do here. We collect the like terms. In doing so, we are going to transpose negative 5 over 4 to the right-hand side of the equation. So x will be equals to 11 over 4. If you transpose negative 5 over 4 to the right-hand side, will give us plus 5 over 4. Again, you will observe and then realize that they are having a common denominator. So x will be equals to, adding the numerators will give us 16 all over, take one of the denominators because they have a common denominator. If you divide 16 by 4, the value of x will be equals to 4. So looking at the equation here, it's like if you are asked to solve this equation using completing the square method, the equation is 2x squared minus 5x minus 12. The answer is 0. The 2 solutions that can satisfy this equation are x equals to negative 3 over 2 and x equals to 4. Meaning if you substitute them into the equation, the result must be equals to what? 0. I think this is what we did in the last lesson. So today, we are going to make sure that we use the knowledge of completing the square method to help us derive the formula as we stated earlier on in our learning objectives. So please, it's a very, very important part of the lesson. In fact, I can say it's the heart of the lesson. Because if you know how to get something by yourself, it will be always easy for you to use it along the line anytime it comes your way. So we are going to use completing the square method to derive the formula. How are you going to do that? In deriving the formula, we are going to use the standard form of a quadratic equation. And the form that we are going to use today is going to be of the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals to 0. In our first step, we are going to transpose the constant of the equation to the right-hand side. That will give ax squared plus bx equals to negative c. If you transpose c to the right-hand side, will give us negative c. The next step we are going to take is to divide every term by a. Why are we dividing every term by a? Is to make the quadratic term to have a coefficient of 1. Which means we have to divide every term by a. A cancel a. We are left with x squared plus bx over a equals to negative c over a. Now, if you look at this expression, I will write it this way to remind you something that we learned in the previous lesson. We have x squared plus b over a x plus equals to negative c over a plus now, I have just done something on the blackboard or the smartboard. Now, what is done on the smartboard is I have created spaces, as you can see, on the left-hand side and on the right-hand side. And we did that immediately we've transposed the constant of the equation to the right-hand side. Now, why did we create this? If you can remember in the previous lesson, I told you a way of finding a number that can help you. Let's say we concentrate on what is on the left-hand side. You were told how to find a number that will help you to make a particular quadratic expression to become what? A perfect square trinomial. So in this case, we are going to find a number which, when you put here, can help you to get a perfect square trinomial. And that same number must be added to the right-hand side, since we are solving what? An equation. And this will help to make the equation balance. So in this case, what are we going to do? We have to make sure that we find the constant on the left-hand side. And anything we get there, remember, must be added to the right-hand side. So what is going to be the number here? Remember, we always take the b value and divide by 2. But like I said, it could also mean multiplying the b value by half, since the result will always be the same. So our b value is here in this expression is b over a. All right? So to help us get the answer, I will multiply this by half, since that's the procedure to get the number. If you multiply b over a times half, if you multiply b times half, that is going to give us b times 1 is b over a times 2 will give us 2a. But remember again, the rule said the moment you get the result, you must square the results before adding it to both sides of the equation. So this is going to be equals to, taking the result, which is b over 2a, we are going to square this. And since this is going to be the number or the answer that we obtain, which is supposed to be added to the two boxes that I created, so this will give us something like x squared plus b over ax. Now we are going to add this into those two boxes that I wrote, both on the left and on the right. And that will give us plus, what number did we have? We have in bracket b over 2a all squared equals to negative c over a. What did we add? Remember, what you do on the left must be done on the right-hand side. It's going to be plus, in bracket, b over 2a all squared. I think this is exactly what we're supposed to do. Now, since we are able to add that, remember again in the previous lesson you are told that once you get this, you can easily factorize. Remember, you were taught how to factorize. So, to factorize what is on the left-hand side, if you factorize completely, you are going to have x plus b over 2a all squared. I don't need to emphasize that because we have been doing it in our previous lessons again and again. This is going to be equals to, if you simplify what is on the right-hand side, you will have negative c over a plus, the square is affecting both the numerator and the denominator, and that will give us b squared all over 2a squared will give us 4a squared. Again, this will give, in bracket, x plus b over 2a all squared equals to, if you simplify this, we find the LCM, and the LCM of a and 4a squared will be 4a squared. If you take a and divide 4a squared, this could mean 4 times a all over a. So if you cancel this, you'll be left with what? 4a. So we will have 4a as our remainder here, which is set to multiply c. So remember, c is negative. So you are going to say 4a times negative c will give us negative 4ac plus 4a square into 4a square will cancel, and the result becomes 1. So 1 times b square will give us b square. So this is going to give x plus b over 2a all squared equals to, if you see what is written on top as the numerator is negative 4ac plus b square, I am going to switch the order of the two terms, and that could mean the same as b square minus 4ac all over 4a square. These two could mean the same. The only thing I did is I switched the order of the terms in the numerator. Now, the next thing we are to do here is we are going to take the square root of both sides of the equation. We take the square root of the left-hand side, and we do the same thing on the right-hand side. Remember, the square root should cover both the numerator and the denominator because it is in combine. So here, the square will cancel the root, and we are left with x plus b over 2a, which is equals to, since the square root is affecting both the numerator and the denominator, I want us to separate them. And that will give us square root of b square minus 4ac all over the square root of 4a square. Now you realize that what did I do in the right hand side of the equation? I have shown you that these two are now separated, and we are going to do something here. For the numerator, there is an operation combining the two terms, but for the denominator there is nothing like that, which we can further simplify. For clarity, if you have the square root of 4a square, this is the same as taking the square root of 4, remember you've learned sorts in grade 10, times the square root of a square. So in this case, 4 is a perfect square, and the square root of 4 will give us what? 2 times. You are told that if a number is squared again, put in a root, the square and the root are said to cancel. So a will remain. So what will remain in the denominator here is going to be the same as 2a. So we are going to use this 2a for our denominator instead of the square root of 4a squared. And that will give x plus b over 2a equals to the square root of b square minus 4ac all over. We are not going to put the square root of 4a square anymore. Instead, we write only what? 2a, since we all know how the 2a come about. But don't forget to put the sign. It's going to be plus or minus. Very, very important. Now, since we are able to get that, are we stopping there as the answer? No. We still have something to do to help us get the answer completed. If you look at what is on the left-hand side, we have a letter, which is x, with another component, b over 2a. So we have to make sure that we transpose b over 2a to the right-hand side of the equation, and that will help us to get the formula. How are you going to do that? We have x equals to, I said we are going to transpose this, and that will give us, remember the sign here is positive, so when you transpose it, it's going to be negative b over 2a. It's already transposed, and on the right-hand side, we have plus or minus the square root of b square minus 4ac all over 2a. you need to be careful. Now that I have created something, are you stopping here again as your answer? No. Remember, you are deriving the formula. So we need to walk another step ahead to see what we are going to have. If you compare these two terms that you have on the right-hand side, that is negative b over 2a plus or minus the square root of b square minus 4ac all over 2a. If you compare them, you realize that there is something that they have in common. And what is that? They are having a common denominator. And again, when dealing with fractions, you are told that if the denominators are the same, you can operate their numerators by either adding or subtracting. So since they have a common denominator, you have the right to express this as x equals to minus b plus or minus the square root of b square minus 4ac all over 2a. Now, if you look at this, those of you who must have come across the formula somewhere will know that actually the formula for the formula used in solving any quadratic expression is always expressed in that way. And this will take us to the next slide, as you can see on the blackboard. They said the solution of ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, where a is not equals to 0, why a must not be equals to 0. In your previous lessons, you were told that a must not be 0 because anytime a is 0, you will never have a quadratic expression and you are dealing with what? A linear equation. So looking at what we have here and what we have in the previous lesson, you realize that they are almost the same. Okay, so students should be very, very conscious anytime they are given a task like this to make sure that they prove to give the formula.
Yeah, you said almost the same, exactly the same.
Okay. Now, if you look at what we have in this slide, that's the formula here. That is x equals to minus b plus or minus the square root of b square minus 4ac all over 2a is exactly the same as what we have just done together. Because if you look at the work done, we decided to solve from the beginning right down to the end. And the answer that we obtain is exactly the same as the answer we have here. So students should be very, very careful when they are asked to prove the formula, because the steps, although are a bit complicated, but if you handle the problem as the rules were given to you, you will never be in trouble. So this means to read this formula, we read this as x equals the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all divided by 2a, like I mentioned. We have an example to look at together, and I will expect you to work with me as the steps will be stated clearly. The first example is solve 2x squared plus 3x minus 5 equals to 0. I am going to give you a pattern that we are going to walk through when a question is given. The first advice I will give is always try to identify your a value, your b value, your c value before doing anything. And can we do that together, please? Remember, the pattern or the equation in standard form that I used to derive the formula was ax squared plus bx plus c equals to 0. This is exactly what we used to prove or to derive the formula. Now here, we are going to make sure that we look at the equation given properly and then identify where should a be located and what is going to be the value for a. How can we locate b? How can we locate c? Care must be taken when dealing with the signs. It's not always that the sign must be positive. If the sign is positive, we take it as a positive. If it is negative, we consider the negative sign as well. So let's do it together. Who can give us the value of A? In the equation, the value of A here is going to be 2. So we write A equals 2. Who can give the value of B? B equals to 3. And who can give us the value of C? C equals to -5. In some cases, students will never put the -5, they will write only 5. I want to make it clear that if you ignore the negative sign, you will solve down to get answers, but the answer will not be correct. Please take note of the negative sign. Very, very important. Now, if you can remember, when we derive the formula, who can give us the formula after deriving it? The formula is x equals minus b plus or minus the square root of b square minus 4ac all over 2a. This is exactly what we get when we derive the formula together. Now, how are you going to use this formula to get the answer to solving this equation? We are going to substitute in grade 8 or grade 9. Your teachers taught you how to substitute in what? Numbers for letters when solving equations. That's exactly what we are going to do here. We know the value of A, we know the value of B, and we also know the value of C. So we are going to substitute them directly into the equation. And that will give x equals to, if you look at the formula, B is already having a negative sign. And here B is 3. So it means our B value will be -3. Why is it going to be negative? As it is indicated in the formula, the B must take a negative sign. Plus or minus the square root of, our B value is still what? 3. So we'll put 3 square minus 4. 4ac means 4 times the value of A times the value of C. So we multiply 4 times our A value is how many? Is 2 times our C value is -5. All over 2A. Our A value is 2, so that's going to be 2 times 2. You have your calculators with you. We are going to simplify this together. X equals to -3 plus or minus 3 squared, or 3 raised to the power 2, will give us 9. If you look at the other term, that is 4ac, we have a negative sign before the 4, and our C value is also negative. And remember, we are multiplying. If you multiply a negative number by another negative number, the answer is always what? Positive. So if you multiply 4 times 2, that will give us 8. And 8 times 5 will give us 40. But remember, I said a negative number times a negative number will give us what? Positive. So 4 times 2 times 5 will give us 40. All over 2 times 2 is 4. Is that the answer to the solution of the question? No, we have to work further. Again, we have to make sure that we simplify what is in the root. And that will give x equals to -3 plus or minus, if you add 9 plus 40, that will give us 49 all over 4. We still simplify what is in the root. If you look at 49, by punching it in your calculators, what's going to be the square root of 49? The answer is going to be 7. So that will give us negative 3 plus or minus 7 all over 4. Is that the answer? No. We have two signs in between negative 3 and 7. And remember, the solution to the equation, since it is quadratic, must be what? 2 answers. So that will give us x equals to, we work them one after the other, and that will give us negative 3 minus 7 all over 4. If you simplify this, negative 3 minus 7, in grade 7, you've learned about integers, and your teachers told you that when you have two numbers like this, you always add and maintain the sign. And the operation that we have here is negative 3 minus 7. That will give x equals to negative 10 all over 4. We are going to take or look at a number that can go into 10 and at the same time into 4 without a remainder. What number is that? 2 can do that. So x equals to, how many times can 2 go into negative 10? That's going to be, the answer will be negative 5 all over. How many times can 2 go into 4? That's going to be 2. So this is one solution for the equation. Or, from this point here, we can write x equals to negative 3 plus 7 all over 4. We did for the subtraction sign. We must do the same for the addition. X will be equals to, what is negative 3 plus 7? From your calculator, you will have 4 all over 4. If you might be confused along the line, you just switch the order of the numbers, and that will give you the same as 7 minus 3, which could mean 4. X equals to 4 divided 4, the answer becomes 1. So the answer to the equation 2x squared plus 3x minus 5 equals 0 are, we have x equals to negative 5 over 2 or x equals to 1. These are the two solutions which, when you substitute into the equation here, by solving what is on the left hand side, the answer must be equals to what? 0. Now, this example 2. In example 2, we have 2x equals x squared minus 3. Now, what did you notice from this question? I will ask the following questions. Is the equation in standard form? No, it is not. We have to make the equation standard. Can we do that together? I'm going to transpose what is on the left-hand side to the right-hand side. And that will give, if I transpose this 2x, nothing remains here. Equals, we have x squared. Transposing the 2x to the right-hand side will give negative 2x. Then the 3 is already there. That will be minus 3. So to switch the order of the equation, this is the same as x squared minus 2x minus 3 equals to 0. Is it in standard form now? Yes, it is. What next are you going to do since the equation is in standard form? We are going to identify the value of A, the value of B, and the value of C. This will help us to substitute into the equation and help us solve to get the answer to the question. What is the value of A? The value of A in this equation is 1. What is the value of B? The value of B is negative 2. What is the value of C? The value of C is negative 3. Now that we are able to get the values of A, B, and C, what next are we going to do? The next step we are going to take is we are going to use the formula, and the formula is x equals to minus b plus or minus the square root of b square minus 4ac all over 2a. Since the value of a is known, the value of b is also known, and the value of c is also known, we are going to substitute them right away into the formula. And that will give x equals to, what is the value of b? You can see right away that's negative 2. And that will give us negative, because the formula is already having negative sign in bracket, negative 2 plus or minus the square root of, b is having a negative sign. This time around we put it in a bracket, then minus 4 times a is 1 and c is negative 3 all over 2a, meaning 2 times 1. Now, why did I put the negative 2 in a bracket this time around? In our previous lesson, I warned students seriously that if you have a negative number, if you press this on your calculator, it will give you negative 4. Again, if you press the same number in this form, punching it on the calculator will give you positive 4. And this is the correct form. We don't need this. So you need to be very careful. So we continue. That's going to give us x equals to negative negative will change the sign automatically to positive 2 plus or minus the square root of negative 2 squared will give us 4. And again, we have a negative sign here, and there's another negative sign there. If these two signs multiply, that will give us a positive sign. So if you multiply 4 times 1, that's 4. 4 times 3 will give us 12. All over 2 times 1 is 2. X equals to 2 plus or minus the square root of 4 plus 12 is 16 all over 2. Now, if you look at 16, it is a perfect square. And we are going to work it out together. Can we solve this together? What is the value of the square root of 16? The square root of 16 is x equals to 2 plus or minus. Our square root is going to be 4 all over 2. So since we have two signs in the middle, that is plus and minus, we are going to solve them one after the other. X equals to 2 minus 4 all over 2. This will give 2 plus or minus square root of 16 is 4 all over 2. So taking it one after the other, because we have two signs, will give us 2 minus 4 all over 2, or 2 plus 4 all over 2. I decided to solve these operations one after the other. X equals to 2 minus 4 will give us negative 2 divided by 2. Or 2 plus 4 will give us 6 all over 2. If you divide negative 2 by 2, x equals to negative 1. Or if you divide 6 by 2, that will give us 3. So if you look at the question, we are asked to solve the equation to find the values of x. So the two answers that can satisfy the equation are x equals to -1 or x equals to 3, as you can see from the question. Putting any number in place of x in the equation will give you an equal equation or an equal statement. That is, what is going to be on the left must be equals to what is going to be on the right. Solve the following equation using the quadratic formula. Now, in this equation, the same process must be done. We have x squared minus 5x plus 4 equals to 0. Let's look at it together again. Remember, we have to find the value of a. We have to find the value of a, the value of b, and the value of c. What is the value of a? The value of a is 1. What is the value of b? Is -5. And what is the value of c? It is 4. Now, since we are able to identify the values of a, b, and c, what should be the next thing we're supposed to do? We are going to make sure that we substitute in the values of a, b, and c into the formula. Now, to write the formula, we have x equals to minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. We know the value of a, we know the value of b, and we know the value of c. We substitute them into the formula. X equals to, our b value is -5. As you can see, now we are going to substitute each of these values into the formula. B is -5, but in the formula there is already a negative. So that's going to give us negative in bracket, -5 plus or minus. If you forget this negative sign, you miss it, and that will lead you to a wrong answer. The square root of, since b is negative, I'll use a bracket again, and that will give us -5 all squared minus 4 times a is 1 times c is 4 all over 2a, and the value of a is 1. To further, you will have x equals to negative times a negative number will always give us positive answer. Plus or minus the square of the square of 5 in bracket will give us 25 minus, this time around, all the components there are positive. So if you multiply 4 times 1 is 4, times 4 will give you 16 all in a root. Divide by 2 times 1 will give you 2. X equals to 5 plus or minus. If you subtract 25 minus 16, the answer is 9 in a root all over 2. Now, if you look at 9, it's a perfect square. What's the square root of 9? The square root of 9 is, we'll have 5 plus or minus 3 all over 2. Now, since we have two operations combining 5 and 3, we are going to work them one after the other. I'll start with the negative sign. X equals to 5 minus 3 all over 2, or x could also be equals to 5 plus 3 all over 2. If you subtract 5 minus 3, x equals to what? 2 all over 2. Or 5 plus 3 will give us 8 all over 2. Now, if you simplify this finally, x will be equals to 2 divided by 2 is 1, or 8 divided by 2 is 4. So these are the solutions to the equation, and anytime you substitute these two numbers into this equation, your solution must be equals to what? 0. Okay? Now we move to the next slide. Now, in our final slide, we have some try questions, and it's going to be an assignment. The question is solve the following equations. Remember, using the formula. The first equation is 2x plus 3 in bracket open, x minus 1 over 2, bracket close, equals to 0. I repeat. Question 1, bracket open, 2x plus 3, bracket close, bracket open, x minus 1 over 2, bracket close, equals to 0. Question 2, x square minus x minus 1 equals to 0. X square minus 1, x square minus x minus 1 equals to 0. Question 3, y square minus 35y equals to 2y. I repeat, y square minus 35y equals to 2y. Question 4, 2x square plus 40x minus 9,600 equals to 0. 2x square plus 40x minus 9,600 equals to 0. And the last but not the least is bracket open, n plus 34, bracket close, bracket open again, n minus 33, bracket close, equals to 0. So these are very good questions that you can try with during your leisure time. And before I step out of this lesson, I want to give you a reminder. And the reminder is, remember, we are having this virus that is disturbing the whole world at large. And if you listen to our medical personnel, they are reminding people every now and then about certain measures that you can take to prevent yourself from this virus. Amongst them are frequently wash your hands with clean running water, perhaps with soap or detergent if you have. Also, you can use hand sanitizers. Avoid overcrowded places. You stay at home. Don't move out. Avoid the football fields and other places. Avoid ghettos, especially to the boys. And I think this can help you to keep yourself safe, and then you can live longer and then also be safe with the virus. On that note, I think I'll stop here till I come your way in the next lesson.